Today, I've set myself a challenge, and that is to try and buy and fix a motorbike for less than £500. Now, to buy and fix a motorbike for less than £500 is a tall order when you consider that I am not a mechanic and I'm not particularly brilliant at fixing anything. But regardless of that, if you're familiar with this channel, you know that I like to give it a go anyway. Now, as I've learned along the way, when you buy a cheap motorbike, it is often riddled with problems. You're always buying the problems that nobody else wanted to fix. But with so many cheap bikes available on Facebook Marketplace, there's got to be one or two out there that could be fixed fairly easily. So let's start with Facebook Marketplace. I've switched my settings to search motorbikes only, and I've stuck in a maximum budget of $750 because we've got to be able to make people an offer, see if we can get something that they'd be asking a little bit more for, but see if we can get some money off it to get it within the budget. And nothing grabbing me straight away. Okay, I'm going to skip through the footage of me searching because I was literally a few hours of me just mumbling to myself about bikes I could potentially buy and what might be wrong with them, but I whittled it down to two potential options. Now, I found one of them fairly quickly on Facebook Marketplace, but I also used good old-fashioned Gumtree and I found a really cool second option. So, option one is this. It is a Suzuki SFV650 Gladius. It's a 2011 and it currently runs but doesn't ride, and they suspect it's due to the tip sensor. And if you look just here, you'll see my superior negotiating skills that have arranged a discount on that bike down to 450 quid. Now that's a bit tight, giving me only 50 quid left to try and fix that bike with if I go with that option, but it seems doable if the bike is already running. And option two, which I think is really cool, is this. And it is a Yamaha XV750. And it's a 1983, so it is the original Virago. The guy is asking just £500. I've already had him on the phone. He is willing to negotiate a bit, but obviously he wants me to see it to make him an offer. But that one is in Bristol, so that will be a little bit of driving just to go and look at it and decide whether or not I'd be interested. Now with the Virago, the engine is free, the gears select, everything seems to work, but he's suggesting that it has got a faulty starter solenoid, which, I mean, I've jumped plenty of starter solenoids in my time. So potentially that thing could get running fairly easily. So now I'm a bit torn. I will do a little bit more research, see if anything else pops up. But right now, as it stands, those are the two bikes that I am looking to choose between. My heart is telling me I want the Virago, but my head is saying go with the Gladius. So right now, I'm not really sure which one I'm going to go with. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to run some errands so that I've got everything out the way that I need to do today. Maybe flip a coin and I'll decide which one I go and pick up later on today. So we'll probably cut back in a minute with me having bought something, or at least going to look at something. Okay, it is now the next day and I have finally, well, I've made my decision. I have already bought something and I think it could work out really well as a massive bargain, or it's going to be a total headache. Let me show you what option I went with. I, of course, went with the Suzuki SFV650 Gladius. And I gotta be honest, what a good looking bike that is. And all in all, I gotta be honest, this bike is in really good condition. It is a 2011, so it's not as old as some of the stuff that I would normally buy on this channel. But it is in really good condition. There's a couple of little scratches here or there, but cosmetically, this is quite good. It has only covered 38,000 miles, which on one of these engines, they're fairly reliable, pretty bulletproof from what I can gather online, but 38,000 miles is pretty much nothing for one of them. The forks are really good. There's nothing on them. Maybe a light misting of oil on that one, but the seals are good. They don't bottom out. The tyres are both pretty good, front and rear. There's nothing too concerning down here with the sprocket, the chain, the rear swing arm or the shock. The brakes bind a little bit, but nothing too serious. It's just from where they obviously haven't been used for a while. But what I'm not seeing is any oil leaking from anywhere, any fuel leaking from anywhere, or no rust, and no rust. Normally, when I buy a bike, it is covered in rust. That is clean. And it turns out my negotiating skills are even better than I thought, because I actually got the bike well within my budget. I paid just £350 for that Gladius. So big shout out to Dean that I bought the bike from, because when I got there, he realized he does watch my channel. So I told him what I was doing and he knocked a little bit more money off it. So big shout out, thank you very much. Now, I know that's pretty positive so far, but there is a big but with this bike, and I will show you what that big but is in a minute, because while the bike does kind of start, it currently doesn't run, and that needs fixing. So if I pop the seat off, which is key down here, and connect a jump pack because I've drained the battery a bit. So, turn the bike on, try and start it. It turns over absolutely fine, you can hear that. And if you get it just right, it will kind of fire up, sort of. So it's kind of trying to fire up. You do get the occasional, like, it kicks into life a little bit, but generally on the whole, it's not running. So, bit of a problem. However, with this being a newer bike than previous that I've dealt with, apparently there is a way to figure out what is causing that problem, and the bike will actually tell me. Down here, somewhere in the rear portion of the bike, there is a 6-pin plug that I can connect 2 of the pins, and it will put the bike into dealership mode. And then on the dash, it will tell, or the clocks, it will tell me a fault code. Okay, after a lot of looking around, I finally found the dealer code port. Everything online was telling me it should be here. When you sit on the bike, it should be under the right-hand fairing or right-hand panel. It should be here, but it wasn't. So I started looking around and I found it over the other side here. Now that tells me somebody in the past has been looking around and fiddling with that, so hopefully they haven't done any damage that I can't get around. So apparently the bike doesn't actually store any code, so you need to turn it on. And it doesn't seem to want to start at all now. So I'm getting the FI light. So in theory, if I now connect a wire into there, it should give me a code. Okay, quick fast forward because I messed up a lot of different things there. I couldn't get the bike to actually turn over, and I was trying to figure out what I had done. And it turns out it was just this little wire here, which is, I think it's for the clutch switch or something, I don't know. Either way, with a paper clip in there, the bike turns over. And then when I finally got it to turn over in dealer mode, I had a bunch of fault codes which I recorded on my phone, so they'll see here. So it was C13, C14, C15, C21, 23, 29. I think that was all of them. So after a quick Google, I found out a lot of those codes are for a bunch of sensors, so it's probably not all the sensors that have failed. I wouldn't have thought, according to, well, a lot of the Suzuki forums, it's more likely like an earth or connection or something. So with me not quite knowing what to do with all of those codes, and I need to do probably a couple of hours of Googling, I decided to go back to basics and I checked the plugs. So I pulled the rear 2 plugs there and I pulled the front 1 down there. I didn't pull the other one because it is down here under the radiator. And what I found is the plug from the front does have spark. The 2 rear ones, only one of them has a very faint spark. Obviously, if I put the plug from the front in the rear coils, it sparks absolutely perfectly. So I'm guessing I got at least 2 bad plugs. So what I'm going to do, it's about 10:30 at night. So in the morning, I'm going to go to M&P's in Swansea and I'm going to buy 4 plugs and just change all of them. So at least then I know that all of the plugs are good and I can rule that out. And what I did find out as well from pulling all the plugs is that they were all wet. So there is fuel getting in there despite a lot of the codes being for like throttle sensors and things like that. But at least we know the sensors and things are not killing the spark because I had spark in at least one of the plugs. I've never really had a bad spark plug before, so this is actually a first. The spark plug is not normally the problem in my experience, but at least then, if I change them all, they're done and I can rule that problem out and we can start finding the real fault. Or I could get really lucky and put 4 new spark plugs in and it starts first time, but I guess we will find out slightly later on in 3, 2... Okay, it is the next morning and I forgot something very important. Obviously, I was working on the bike last night and I got to the point where I needed new spark plugs and I've realised it is Sunday and there is basically no motorbike shop open for me to go and get spark plugs. Luckily, Halfords is open on a Sunday and it says I can collect the spark plugs within an hour or 2. So I've ordered them and I'm waiting for them to let me collect them. But first of all, I'm going to try and clean up the old spark plugs and just see if that makes any sort of difference. As you can see, or not see, depends if it focuses, they're a bit black on top. So I'm just going to clean those up. Okay, hopefully I can get this nice and clear. Spark plug is cleaned up and that's getting spark. If we check this one again, which I haven't cleaned up, we're just getting some spark, but we'll clean it up anyway and we'll just make sure it's correct in the other plug, other cap as well. Okay, so with the plugs good, we just put them back in for the time being. I will go and collect the new plugs anyway because I've ordered them. I'm just waiting for that message to say they're ready to collect. Okay, so now the only plug I haven't checked is on the end of the front cylinder. So I'm going to need to undo a nut just down here, which will hopefully allow me then to swivel the radiator and check that spark plug. Okay, I might need to take a few more things off. So, need to take 2 Allen bolts off, wrong size Allen key. Helps if you've got the right one. Not if they round. Okay, so plug out the front is definitely going to need some cleaning up. That is a bit grim. It's very wet, so seems to be fuel getting in there, I hope. But, I mean, I can imagine that wasn't sparking either. So, if we check it down here after I've cleaned it up, that's got good spark. Okay, that time it actually did run a little bit more. I managed to walk away from the bike before it cut out, but it does cut out as soon as you hit the throttle, so it's clearly not idling at all or very well. So fresh fuel is definitely going to help that, but I am just going to try the dealer mode one more time. Okay, pretty weirdly now, dealer mode is throwing up no fault codes whatsoever. This thing is a bit of a mystery. So the only thing I can try right now is fresh fuel so that I can rule that out. Because obviously we've got spark, we've got fuel, but how good that fuel is might be causing the problem. Okay, so luckily I didn't screw the tank back in. I just placed it in. But this is quite tricky to do on your own because you've got to tilt it sideways to stop all the fuel coming out. And then you've got to remove the fuel lines. Very tricky because there's no stopcock on it. Okay, so fast forward because the camera died. Fuel is all drained out of there. I took this out because I couldn't get it to come out of anywhere else. So I took the fuel pump and sensor and everything out, pumped the fuel out with a hand pump, and that is now back in. So I nipped out to go and get some fresh fuel, and I realised I made a boo-boo. This is a proper hang your head in shame moment. As I strolled back into the unit, holding me jerry cans, I took a look at the bike and thought, oh, I should put them fairings back on. And I realised I left one of the plug caps off. So when the bike started just now and was not running very well, that could be a major reason why. If I pop that back on in there, get a nice click, then bolt the radiator back in place. Okay, that's in. What a silly mistake. That's probably one of the stupidest mistakes I've made. Probably the stupidest since the time I forgot the kill switch on the GS 550 or 500, whatever it was. But mistake corrected. So now at this point, I'm not going to know whether the fuel was bad or not when I put fresh fuel in. Could just be that spark, because that cap wasn't in, obviously the bike wouldn't run properly. Don't know, but we're going to put fuel in the tank and plug it all back in and try again. So just going in reverse of what I did last time. This breather hose. I know I should put something under the tank to stop it scratching. I'm not a professional, that's very clear. And the fuel sensor or power for the fuel pump. Whoa. Now we add fresh dinosaur juice. Hopefully it doesn't all leak out the bottom from where I took the fuel pump off and put it back on. Okay. Moment of truth time, I guess. Why isn't that sparking now? Okay, now the FI light is coming on.
Just stop that.
Kind of. C13, C14, C17, C23, C29. Okay, I seem to have located the problem. Under here, you can't really see because the tank is off. There was a plug for, I think it's the starter valve throttle, something like that, I think it's called. It was one of the error codes, but when you turn the bike on, it was making a horrible whining, whirring sound, almost sounding like a fuel pump, but not the fuel pump. Now that I've unplugged that sensor, watch. So you hit the starter with throttle. But it won't idle. And if you hit the starter, with throttle it starts, without throttle doesn't start. But if you plug that back in, where was it? Just there. And then you turn the key. Let me see if I can pick up the noise. Now, if you start it with the throttle, nothing. Not really picking up the sound from it either, but it was like it was trying to move or something. There we go. If you can hear that. That is the sound that it makes. And now it's stopped making the sound, but plugged in. No start. Unplugged. No noise. Oh. No start either. Weird. Tip sensor. And just one last check. Dealer mode is saying C29. And only C29. So tank back off for the umpteenth time. Let's have a look. So the part in question is this, which I think is the SVT, starter throttle valve, or secondary throttle valve. I'm not 100% sure. It could be the sensor that's knackered. It could be the valve that's not good. I don't know. That's the code that's coming up, C29. That's what's making all the noise. And I definitely cannot get a new one of them today. But if you look through there, you can just see it is a little Torx head screw. So, as long as I got the right size on here. No, it's a security one. So now I've tightened the screw on it because before it was wiggling all over the place and now it doesn't. So maybe we just try that. Okay, last chance saloon you. If this doesn't work, then I don't know what else I'm going to try. Okay, this bike is getting beyond confusing now. So whatever the problem is, it definitely has something to do with that little sensor or control, whatever it is. It's definitely something to do with it starting. And every time I go into dealer mode on it, I get different issues or different fault codes coming up each time. Sometimes I get just code 29, and then sometimes I get codes 13, 14, 17, 21, 23, and 29. But right now I am out of ideas and I am out of time on this bike because it is, well, it's midday on Sunday now. I've been at this since I picked the bike up yesterday afternoon. And obviously with it being a Sunday, I can't really get parts anywhere. Bikes, you know, but a lot of the time parts have to come from eBay, which means I got to do a couple of hours research to make sure I can get the right part, getting a good price for it. And then you got, you know, 2 days, 3 days, up to a week for postage. But there are some positives. I've made progress. I can get the bike to generally not run, but I can get it to start and, you know, run with revs. But we're not really getting an idle out of it at all. However, because I only bought the bike for £350, there is £150 left in the budget to fix it. Now, I did think maybe I could do this in like 24 hours, but you know, I've got probably about 12 hours fiddling around with the bike. I know it doesn't look that much, but between fiddling with it, Googling and other bits, I've probably got about 12 hours in it now. Actually, on second thought, it's probably not that high. It's probably more like 6, 7. But either way, there is still plenty of budget left to fix it, unless there's one of those valves is horrendously expensive, then I should be able to do this within my £500 budget. And what an absolutely nice looking bike that would be for £500 all in. Now this video was a bit of an impromptu one because it's not what I was planning on doing this week. I didn't really want to buy anything, but I was doing a couple of other things and nothing really panned out all week. And I pretty much had most of the weekend to myself, the missus and the kids being away. So I thought, let's do a bit of a challenge. Start something new because it's easier than doing something I've already started. I guess that's the ADHD in me. Something new is always more exciting than something you've already started. But one thing is for sure, I'm definitely getting a bit more confident with what I'm doing because obviously that bike is different to all the other ones that I've pretty much ever dealt with because they've all been carbs. That is fuel injected, and I thought it was going to be a bit easier because it had dealer mode on it, but that dealer mode is probably more confusing than anything else. But as always, without me being a mechanic, you know, it takes time. You've got to learn these things, and you know, getting stuck in is the best way to do it. So back to the drawing board with that one. I've got lots of parts coming for things like the CBR this week and a few parts for the Melody. And obviously I need to now do a bit of research and possibly, well, most than likely order whatever that sensor or part is for the Gladius. So either way, if you've enjoyed watching me not fix another bike again, then give this video a thumbs up. If you think I will get to the bottom of that bike, or if you think that was a really good buy at 350 quid despite its problems, then let me know in the comments. Or if you know what that part is called or what you think is the problem with that bike, then also let me know in the comments. And if you don't want to miss the future of that bike and find out whether or not I can actually fix it within my £500 budget, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.